What is going on, guys? My name is Arrow, and today I'm bringing you some tips and tricks for my Cobra Lash League starter. Alright, so we put the video out, 10,000 views in one day, and let's say there was a lot of feedback. Mostly positive, but there was some criticisms, there was some negative feedback, and I want to kind of go through and address some of the things that people complained about with the build, some things that people talked about that maybe I didn't fully explain well, and some things that maybe I might have gotten wrong. So let's dive in. Number one, Withering Step versus Wither Totems. Let's get this one out of the way early. I made a mistake in my League Start video where I suggested that you could drop Withering Step. Don't do it. I did it on my endgame build where I had way more damage than I needed, and it wasn't even noticeable to drop Withering Step. But this is not an endgame build, so it was a mistake to say that. Don't drop Withering Step. And there's a couple of reasons why. Number one, Withering Step is incredibly strong for Nightblade builds. Withering Step resets your elusive effect, which drops over time, and this is a massive portion of our damage. Number two, I have a new solution that solves our socket pressure issue and doesn't require you to drop Withering Step. You are going to link Withering Touch to an Ancestral Protector totem. This will do a few things. It'll give us a huge attack speed boost, which we want because Ancestral Protector is very strong for this build. And it'll keep our Wither stacks nearly at max on bosses. My suggested 4-link is Whirling Blades, Faster Attacks, Withering Touch, and Ancestral Protector. Again, my apologies. I messed up. First time making a League Start build guide. The other elephant in the room is Spectral Helix. A lot of people have said, isn't Spectral Helix better against bosses in the axe? Yes. So is Seismic Trap, EA Ballistas, Poisonous Concoction. If you want to play those skills, go for it. There are tons of great guides out there for those skills made by great creators who really know what they're talking about. I made this build as an alternative. I didn't want to play those builds anymore. A lot of folks don't want to play those builds again. So I'm merely trying to provide an alternative for a build that I know works. If you've been in my stream at all for the last couple of weeks, you'll have seen that I have tested the axe 8 times, and multiple of those characters I took into the 80s. I've tried various gem setups, different gear options, and I promise that if you follow this guide and follow my tips closely, you won't have any issues. This is not the best build in the game. Never claimed that it was. But it is, in my opinion, the best new League starter that's been introduced by any of the creators recently. And one more note about a League starter. Having a good League starter isn't just about getting through the axe quickly. It's actually not really about that at all. If you think about how long you play your first character, if you're someone who plays multiple characters, the amount of time you spend in the axe is very small compared to the amount of time you spend in maps. So if my build is an hour slower than your build through the axe, and then mine is 10% faster in maps, I'm going to beat you to a headhunter 100 times out of 100. The axe just are not that important. If you want to play something different in the axe and then respec, do that. I'm just trying to provide a useful and interesting alternative to the meta that's been around for a couple leagues. Number 3, leveling tips. There are tons of tips in the notes section of the POB, so please check those out. I'm going to cover some of the more important ones here. Get your ascendancies as soon as you can feasibly do the lab. It's so much power each time that you get a new ascendancy. I highly recommend that you get your ascendancies right away. Diamond Flask. Crit chance is so big for us because we get so much multi early on, and I know a lot of people will say that you don't go crit until you get to maps. That's not true for this build. We have hundreds of critical strike multiplier in the late level 30s, so getting your crit chance up is a massive damage multiplier. Early on, use iron rings and a rustic sash as soon as you can get them. Don't be afraid to pick up white items in the first couple of zones, sell them, and then buy an iron ring from a vendor. This is not a spell skill where you can just get gem levels and then beat the next area. You need to get damage. The final leveling tip I'll mention here is going to get its own section. Number 4, upgrade your claws. I saw a lot of people comment that their damage felt horrible, and then I went and looked at their POB or their character profile, and they were using a claw that was 15 levels old, or it had no additional flat damage on it. Upgrade your claws. Use random essences that you find while leveling and slap them on the most recent claw base that you've picked up. Pick up every rare life gain on hit claw. Don't be afraid to run to your hideout and craft a little bit of flat damage on a claw that you find, or maybe some percent damage or attack speed. You get some of these crafts pretty early. Hell, you could even use an alchemy orb or two in the story. This is an attack build, and attack builds require strong weapons. Again, if you don't want to do this stuff, that's fine. If you want to play Poisonous Concoction and not worry about a weapon, you can play Poisonous Concoction. I'm not going to stop you. But remember, this is an alternative. This is something different, and I promise it works. All right, let's talk about cluster jewels. So the large cluster jewels are very, very easy to acquire. You do not need specific nodes on your cluster jewels. You just want the easiest way to get your mediums up and going. What I did was I created a trade in Better Trading that I shared in the POB, and I'm updating this, and I'll share a new one as we get closer. The idea behind this trade is it's going to take 2 of any of these somewhat useful notables, and it's going to find you an 8 passive cluster of one of the good clusters that we can use. So you hit search, currently on any online or off because no one's playing this league anymore. And it's going to show you 8 passive clusters that have 2 notables. You get these 2 notables, it enables your mediums, and for, when you first get to maps on day 1 or 2, this is more than enough. You eventually can worry about getting a perfect cluster later that has Fan of Blades, and I think maybe Fuel the Fight is the next best one. But you don't have to worry about that right away. For the large clusters, just buy them with 2 notables on them. Don't try to craft them. It's not worth it, I promise. And then the medium clusters. I had a fella tell me that these cost 30x to craft. And I promise you, if you watch the video, I'll show you that it only cost a couple of chaos. Let's look at the medium cluster crafting base trade that I have. So you can buy one with follow through already on it, but you don't have to do that. You can buy a base, which will cost you 1 or 2 chaos. You can go to PoE Ninja and look at the data. It was 2 chaos on day 1 last league and 3 chaos on day 2. Maybe a lot of people play this build and that goes up by a couple of chaos. I doubt it's going to be impacted that much from a little guy like me, from a little streamer. So you buy this base and then you go over to Craft of Exile. Well, you don't, I do. And I will show you how to craft this very, very simply. You want a projectile damage, minimum item level 68, so you can get follow through. Here it is. It is a 2.7% chance to roll as a prefix and 1.48% to roll as an affix on the item at all. Orb of Alteration, click follow through. It is 36 Orbs of Alteration on average to craft with alterations and augments on a item level 68 cluster jewel. 36 Orbs of Alteration on day 1 is 2.5C. You don't need a second notable. If you do this and then you regal and you don't hit another notable, that's fine. Follow through is so strong that early on you just want to get 4 of these going as fast as you can. Let's go even farther and let's actually just craft one here live on stream. Create a new item, cluster jewels, medium cluster jewels, projectile damage, item level 68 minimum, proceed. You go over to your trusty transmute and you click your transmute orb. Now I'm going to alteration spam until I hit it. Boom, almost right on the nose. Okay, so we have follow through, we have mana regen, which sucks as a suffix, but we're going to regal and we hit some additional life. Not perfect, but this is all we need on day 1 and 2 to get this build going. You don't need perfect cluster jewels. So let's look at the total cost. We spent 1 transmute, 35 alterations, 9 augments, and 1 regal. 3 to 4 chaos. Craft on this 2C base. It doesn't cost 30 exalts, I promise. Some tips to make sure that your build feels tanky. Armor and evasion bases across the board, combined with grace, determination, defiance banner, is massive for our survivability. There are not a lot of good auras that make this build better offensively, but we get to spend all of our mana trying to make our build tankier. We evade most attacks, and the ones that get past our evasion have a 30% chance to be dodged because of our elusive effect scaling. So for the attacks that make it through, those get reduced by our armor. For spells, we have a 30% chance to dodge those too, but the ones that do get through have their damage reduced by 53%, yet cap spell suppression. This build does not need a ton of health to feel tanky. Number 7, Inspired Learning. So with the potential nerf to Headhunter looming, a lot of folks are curious if this build can use an Inspired Learning, which will seemingly be buffed by the nerf to Headhunter. This build can easily fit one in. I recommend using the jewel socket above Fervor. We already take the Frenzy Charge, the Crit Multi, and the Life Notables. So you can spend 2 points for a Survivalist or 3 for Acuity. I would assess what your build needs more and choose from there. As far as getting a second one in, that's a little bit harder. At this point, you're gonna have to start sacrificing, and I really don't recommend it. All right, my final tip is going to be, come see me on Twitch. If you are having an issue with the build and something's not working, come to my Twitch, tell me what the problem is, and we will work through it. I had 2 people yesterday come onto my stream, say, hey, the build feels terrible. I don't do any damage. And I said, all right, what's your POB? We pulled up the POB live on the stream, and we more than doubled both of their damage for a couple chaos. Moved some things around, some things they had wrong. This is not a super easy build to do, but you really have to follow the instructions closely or you can mess things up. So come check me out. Link is in the description. I'm happy to help. So before you go on YouTube and tell me I'm a fraud, just come see if maybe me and the viewers can help fix your build. So thank you so much for everyone who came, watched the video, and commented and liked and subscribed. The support has been absolutely unbelievable, both on YouTube and on my Twitch channel. I really appreciate you guys so much. So if you like this video and subscribe. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you all. As always, take care.